It's time for ROTD Weekend. Tomorrow is Mother's Day, and so I want to say a big happy Mother's Day to my mom, Phyllis Pittman. I am so grateful to have you as such an amazing mom and friend in my life, and such a wonderful grandmother to all of your grandchildren. We love you so much. I know I have learned so much from you, both in the kitchen and outside of the kitchen, and I am very, very grateful. I also want to say a big happy Mother's Day to the other mothers out there. And I also want to just say to those for whom Mother's Day is a more difficult holiday, I know that, and I am thinking about you. So if you have lost your mother or have a strained relationship with your mother, if you have chosen to not be a mother and people give you a hard time about it, or you feel left out on this day, or if you are dreaming of being a mother and are not one, if you are a mother who is not in touch with their child, a child who's not in touch with their mother, or if you are a mother who has lost a child, I am thinking of you. I know that today is hard everywhere you go, the beginning of this podcast included, it is mentioned. So I hope that you are taking care of yourself today and that maybe you can do something nice for yourself or find a way to get through this. I know it's a hard day. So I want to talk just for a moment about this new project that I am starting. I know that I have hinted at it, and I'm going to just keep hinting until I'm ready to tell you more. It is related, sort of, I guess, to one of the stages of motherhood, and that is empty nesting. And in particular, I am focusing a bit on cooking for two. And the reason is because I cook for two quite often. As you know, my kids are at their dad's every second week, and then I am at home, and Marty's with me sometimes. Sometimes I'm cooking for one. So I do have all of these experiences of what it's like to be cooking for four, for cooking for two, for cooking for one. So I know all about it. And I saw on the survey that we did earlier this year that so many of you are actually struggling with this. And I know I struggle with it often too. And so I have been doing a lot of research and testing different strategies and recipes to try and help us all with this so that we know how to handle this often new challenge and maybe waste less. That can be a thing. Know how to convert recipes and also find ways to help ourselves take care of ourselves and feed ourselves when it doesn't feel as worth it. You know, it can feel like if you've been cooking for a family for a long time, trying to fit it into their schedules and make sure everything's healthy, and you're cooking for 4 or 5 or 6 and you're making these meals, and then suddenly you don't have all of these people that you're cooking for. It's just you or just you and one other person. It can feel like it's not worth it. It can feel like, I'll just make myself some toast. But yeah, so I'm dealing with ways to help us realize that it is worth it, but also make it delicious and easier and give us motivations for doing it. So that is what I am working on. I'm not going to tell you what it is turning into yet, but I do want you to know that that is happening. And if you want to make sure that you find out about all of this as it is coming out and have some input in it, I'm going to be asking some questions. I'm even going to be having some help from you guys to choose logos, possibly color schemes, a whole variety of things. So if you are interested in that, make sure that you are signed up to my newsletter, because that is where all of it's going to be happening. The easiest way to sign up is to go to cookthestory.com/start-here, and you will see the newsletter. Sign up there. I will also put that link in the show notes for this podcast episode. And yeah, you're going to be in on this whole new adventure that I'm building. It is really exciting. And you know what? It's very helpful. I will tell you that I'm already like learning things and trying things that are working their way into my daily cooking and helping me make quicker, easier, more delicious food, especially when I'm on my own or it's just me and Marty. It's been a lot of delicious fun. And you know what? I'm just going to also send you a link for one other thing. I have told you about my rotation ready meal planning guide, and I've mentioned it a few times, but I think I've been unclear about where you can find it because 2 people on Instagram have sent me direct messages asking me where they can get it. They've heard me talking about it, but they don't know where to go. So I apologize for the lack of clarity. If you head to cookthestory.com/rotation, you will get the rotation ready recipes guide. It is a meal planning guide with a template, like a printable template, and lots of recipes that you can like slot into it. It's really a new, interesting way to think about your meal planning when you sit down to do that on the weekend, like today. And now on the theme of cooking in an easier way, about meal planning, about moms and Mother's Day, all of that, I have a great guest for you today. It is Marjory Pilley of dinnermom.com. That is dinner-mom.com. Now, Marjory used to have a meal prep business, actually 2 locations, and she learned a lot. And now that has translated itself into her wonderful website with lots of meal planning and food prep tips. So I know you're going to love this conversation between me and Marjory Pilley. Let's listen. Hello, Marjory. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. And I love that your website has interesting origin story. Can you tell us how you got started in this?
Yeah. Well, it is an interesting story because I discovered the make-ahead meal assembly business when I lived in Tampa. Although I'm from the East Coast of Florida, Space Coast, I was over in Tampa working, and I did a lot of meal prep on my own because I had a daughter with food allergies, and it just required me to be really conscious about our food and what we were doing. So, but I was working a lot. So I needed something to help me make this process easier. And these make-ahead meal assembly stores started popping up. And I'm actually from the Space Coast of Florida, and they didn't have anything like that. So my husband and I have business backgrounds. I'm actually a CPA by nature, but by training, but homeschooled cook. And we headed over here where my parents continued to live, because I knew they'd be able to help me with the girls. And we, kind of started from the ground up and built 2 stores. And they were the first in the area and very popular at the time.
Okay, so this is from a little while ago. I want to make sure everybody knows and that I know what this is. So a meal assembly store, what was going on there?
So we would come up with a different menu every month of a variety of different proteins and hearty things. So sometimes you'd want to add a salad or a vegetable to the side, but it'd be like a substantial meal, and people would pick and choose to do the meal. And we would set up stations where we prepped all of the ingredients, and we'd have a little sign up there so they could just, know what the instructions were and how to assemble it. That being said, there was a lot of room, and they were encouraged to modify it to meet their needs. So they would be able to add a little extra cheese or leave it off, or, like cilantro, the big one,
Yeah.
Some people love it and some people hate it. So they would just have the ability to customize it. And we had older people that would come in, and they could split it. Most people would split it in half. Other people, couples might split it into 3 parts. So basically it just gave people a lot of freedom and a variety of meals to choose from. And at the same time, I really focused on using some ingredients that people might not otherwise try, like hoisin sauce in something, so that they really got the benefit of trying some of these ingredients and recipes they might not otherwise try. So you would come in, you would have your list, you would assemble, package it up, label it, put it in the freezer, and take them all home with you, and have a little list of all the things you had in your freezer. And then you'd have dinner for a month, what we could say.
Oh, that is so great. I think now that you're talking about this, I think I went to a party like this. Did people do them as parties?
Yeah. So some people, when they wanted to have the space to themselves, they would book the whole session and bring in snacks and do all kinds of things.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay, so that got you the name of Dinner Mom.
Our store was called My Delicious Dinners. But when we closed the stores, I'm a mom, and So dinner became, my thing, and it became Dinner Mom because the dinner was associated with my delicious dinners, and I was constantly, working through little sneaky things for being a mom, like sneaking in the carrot in the meatloaf and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so then you launched your site, and now tell me what are you specializing in on the website now?
So it's morphed into more than just freezer recipes. I'm really focusing on easy, healthy. I know that means something different to everybody. So we're trying to provide a lot of information for customization even today. But it's 30-minute meals, or it's meals that take a little time to prep, a few minutes to prep, but it takes longer to bake. So it's not going to be done in 30 minutes, but you can do something else while that's happening, or you can throw it in the crock pot. So we kind of have it categorized that way. And it's kind of, when you're doing your meal planning, you kind of look at how much time you have and what your cooking style is, and you approach it that way.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I feel like there are days when I need the entire dinner to be done in 20 to 30 minutes. And that can be very hands-on. Like sometimes you're there for that time. And then other days I have more time, but I don't want to be standing there the whole time. So that's, like you said, throw it in the Instant Pot, throw it in the slow cooker, or maybe a sheet pan or something, a few minutes to assemble, and then walk away and go do something else. Take a nap. Yeah, no, that's great.
We've always, I say healthy, but the other thing that we've kind of morphed into as well is I like to think of it as carb conscious. It's not really low carb or keto or anything. It's not specifically that, but I am conscious of that. So you won't really find a lot of heavy pasta recipes and things like that. Not that I don't love them, but and more so now you're going to find stuff that's a little more carb conscious.
Okay. And I'm always curious about what things mean to different people. So carb conscious, so not pasta, but do you do grains like quinoa, farro, that kind of thing? Or
yeah, I do. And I even have some pasta recipes as well, but I'm more focused on recipes that you could probably fit into a meal that have less than 45 carbs, 40. Okay. Somewhere in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then are you doing all whole dinner, meals, or are there the proteins and the side dishes? Are they separated?
Yeah, it's all separate. Yeah. Separate. Suggestions, you'll find suggestions, but yeah, it's usually a single recipe.
Actually, we were sort of talking about this before we started recording. I was telling you my complaints about the companies like HelloFresh. Sorry, HelloFresh. But those kinds of companies, the recipes are written, if you've never done them before, where you're sort of moving from step to step of different things. If you're doing, say, a chicken with a broccoli and a rice, step 1 is to do something to the chicken. Step 2 is to do something to the broccoli. Step 3 is the rice. And my brain just doesn't work that way. That's not how I've read recipes. And so I always feel just sort of wait, what's happened to the chicken? What do I do with that now? And it's all over the place. So having things kind of divided into the different recipes is always easier for me anyways. So, Marjory, have you brought a recipe to share with us today?
I tried to be mindful of at least the background. So I wanted to make sure pretty much every month when we would offer our recipes, we'd have a quiche. And I was a little worried about quiche, but it's very appropriate for so many occasions. And I always have one in the freezer. So it's crustless asparagus quiche.
Oh, I love that. Now, I don't think I've ever frozen quiche before, although now that I'm thinking about it, I've had the mini quiches that you could buy frozen. So does it freeze well?
It freezes very well. And let me say that I'm freezing it before it's cooked. It's just a Ziploc with the eggs and the cream and whatever things you're mixing into a Ziploc bag, probably 2 of them to make sure in case something bursts while it's freezing. So it's just a flat Ziploc bag with the quiche in it. You can freeze it when it's cooked, but when I'm making a quiche, I often, I have the bags lined up and there's 3 or 4.
That is brilliant. And I don't know how it has never occurred to me before because eggs freeze so well. Raw egg freezes great. And what a simple, easy thing to do. And I guess if you weren't doing it crustless, I know you are, but if you wanted the crust, you
Absolutely.
could just
same thing.
Pour it into the crust and you're off to the races. You can have your frozen or refrigerated pie dough, whatever it is that you like to use. And then I'm not sure if you would have to bake the crust first and then add the quiche, or does the crust for a quiche bake at the same time as the egg?
At the same time. In fact, at the store, that's how we do it. We'd give them the crust, they'd make up the quiche. And we kind of came up with our formula which I guess we'll get to, as to
Yeah.
how we would do it. It works crustless. Absolutely. I use it in muffin tins, in regular cake pans, if people are coming over and I'm trying to be fancy, I will put it in a pie crust for them. It all depends what I'm focusing on. So it works either way, but I also often, because a lot of quiches share a lot of the same ingredients. So if I'm not really in the mood to have asparagus quiche 4 days in a row or 4 times in a row, you can mix everything else up and add some of the fresh ingredients later. So I have most of it there, just not maybe ham or whatever else I'm going to add to it.
I'm obsessed with this. Okay, I apologize if I'm about to ask questions that you were going to tell me, but like I'm imagining you said muffin tin. You could pour it into the muffin tins, freeze it, then pop them out of the muffin tins. Then you have these little quiche hockey pucks that you can pop into the muffin tins. You're not freezing I really like this.
Put it in ham crusts. You know how you put the ham and make that the crust, or you can just put it in the muffin tin. You spray it with a little cooking spray just to make sure it won't stick. But you can put that in there. You can do it in just a cake pan. You can do it either size, 8 or 9 inch. It'll be thicker or thinner depending on what you do, and you might need to adjust the cooking a little bit. You can put it in a pie crust. And I'm sure there's many different pie crusts you could put it in as well. I've never actually gone that route, but...
Yeah. Okay. You're going to talk me through the freezing and then the cooking preparation as well? Or should I ask all my freezing questions now? I know. Start and I'll ask my questions. I love this.
Okay. So we preheat the oven to 350 degrees. So the biggest prep really involved here is on the asparagus. So to do the sunburst, you can have thick or you can have thin asparagus. I always go for the thin if you can find them. I find you don't even need to blanch them first if they're thin, but often they are not. And so you're going to have to blanch them. So you can either do that in the microwave with a little bit of water, or you can do the traditional boil it 2 minutes, drop it in the cold water, shock it, and then put it into use it for the recipe. So I kind of get that out of the way and set it aside. And then it's just a matter of mixing together. So we use 5 large eggs, 1 cup of milk, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme leaves, and then 1 cup of Swiss cheese and 1/2 cup of ham in this recipe.
Can I ask if it matters what kind of milk you're using? Could it be fat-free or whole milk?
So we would typically use whole milk at the store. But at home, you can really use any type. It's just going to vary how creamy it is. So at my house, I have skim milk and my husband has half and half. So I'm using half of each of those to kind of a happy medium. I probably use whole milk. If I'm really trying to be fancy, I might use some heavy cream. So you can really run the gamut. I have even used skim milk, a whole cup of it. But usually I like to get a little more fat in there because it's going to make it a little creamier.
Yeah, no, that's what I was wondering. I often, depending on what's going on in life, I often only have the skim milk and then I'm never sure. So it's going to cook the same way. It's just going to have
more of an eggy. It's just not as creamy. And we use 5 eggs. And you'll see it different recipes with different things. When you're doing crustless, having a little less moisture is good for making it nice and firm. We wanted it to be pretty foolproof. So we have always stuck with 5 large eggs and 1 cup of milk. But you can make it even creamier by upping that another 1/2 cup.
So when you say firm, I'm imagining like a pie plate, we're going to pour this in there. As it cooks, the edge that's touching the pie plate is going to be a little more solid because of the extra egg?
Well, I find the center, it cooked, because it does take about 60 minutes to cook. And I just really like the way the texture is nice and firm. There's no question that it's not jiggly.
Yeah. Sounds good.
But
okay.
There's a little latitude there. You could put a little more, 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup more to make it even creamier. Then you just have your seasoning. I usually have a cup of cheese. In this recipe, I use Swiss cheese. But on the site, if you ever look at the comments, people have just done everything under the sun, from putting Parmesan to Monterey Jack cheese, they've liked it every time. Then on this recipe, I added a 1/4 cup of diced ham, but you can omit that if you're trying to make it vegetarian.
Okay, so you mix all that together.
So you whisk that really good. And then for this asparagus quiche, you're going to put that into a cake pan for the crustless version that you've sprayed lightly with cooking spray. And then you're going to take your asparagus and you're going to kind of arrange them in a sunburst design and lay the stalks out. In the recipe post, it talks about how to kind of cut them the right length just to get them. But you don't have to, of course. You can just break off the woody ends of the asparagus before you blanch them or use them, and just mix little 2-inch, 1-inch segments into the mixture. I pour that in And let me say, before I add the asparagus, I usually take a fork. No matter what quiche recipe I'm doing, I'll use a fork to just make sure it's kind of distributed, particularly if it includes the ham or whatever in it, if it's been frozen. So you pour it into the cake dish, and then I place the asparagus the way I'd like them.
That is actually a really great tip, because when you've mixed it up, we all know that the egg pours out of the bowl faster than all the little chunks in there. And then those little chunks go in last, and they kind of pile up in one place. So if you use a fork or something slotted, the egg's going to flow through it, and the fork's going to move it all where it wants to go. I like that so much. And then you arrange the asparagus so it's kind of like almost floating on top of the...
Yeah, you're just kind of dropping it into that sunburst design around that. And then you're going to bake it. It can uncover. Of course, it'll vary a little bit by oven, but it takes about 60 to 70 minutes or till you can kind of insert a knife. You can check it at 60, 55. You might need to tent it if you feel like it's getting too brown, but... Pretty much, you're going to put that in there, and then you're going to remove it and let it set for about 10 to 15 minutes.
10 minutes to set. I'm curious to see what you're going to say next, because I have like 5 questions. So we'll see where you want to go.
Okay. Well, since I mentioned all the freezing involved here, if you're freezing it, you're adding all of these ingredients into the Ziploc bag, and you're just placing it in the freezer. You put it in, you get the air out. I usually put it in 2 Ziploc bags so nothing spills out, and then you defrost it. You just put it in your refrigerator the night before you want to make it, let it defrost, and you're kind of operating like you've used a bowl, and you're just going to pour it in and readjust it and go from there.
No, that's great. And I guess, yes, you would not want to thaw this in the microwave, because eggs cook really quickly, right? It would start...
You could use all the safe methods for defrosting. You could put it in the water in half-hour intervals. I mean, if you've frozen it in the flat sheet, you don't even have to do overnight. You can probably lift it out in the morning if you want to do it later in the day.
And it would be safe. I mean, I don't like saying this to people, but the rule is often an hour to 2 at room temperature is fine for something like this. So if it's thin enough and you're just sticking it on the counter for an hour, it's probably going to thaw or be mostly thawed in that time. And that would be safe as well. I just don't like to ever recommend that people leave food out. I know. If you go to like the USDA,
I could never, ever say that. So
no. But like if you go to like USDA website, I think that it has all these guidelines. They're there, but I still feel very weird about it. I'm like, it says you could do this, but I'm not advising it. But I do it.
No, exactly. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Or do it, but don't blame me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Oh, so that's great. And there's no way to bake this from frozen, right? Like you couldn't have.
I've never used that method. I mean, you've seen them in the store, so I've seen them in the pie shell, kind of ready to go in there. But it's just as easy to freeze it separately. I think it's cleaner, and it probably freezes better because it's a pretty airtight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm having this vision of like freezing it in the Ziploc bag and then like breaking it up in the bag and like pouring these egg chunks into this pie pan and putting in the oven. That is probably not what you should do. Oh, okay. And so then I'm curious about the starburst. So can you see the asparagus making this pattern? Are you inverting it to see them, or where are they?
That's so beautiful about it. Yes, you can.
So do they float to the top? Is that where they are?
Yes, because they're slightly under, but yeah, they're right there on top.
And you can see them. Oh, very nice.
I think what people have found really appealing about this one is the way it looks.
Yeah, no, that sounds lovely. And Marjory, I'm telling you, my mind is blown about the frozen quiches. I'm actually starting to think about what I can do for my kids, because they love different my son especially, different egg things, and I never think to freeze them for him. Yeah, I have these little hockey pucks in mind now, the muffin tin little quiches for him. I think he's going to love that. What a great idea. Well, Marjory, can you tell people where they can find you online if they want your easy carb conscious recipes and this quiche recipe too? Where should they go?
Yes, the website is dinner with a -mom, dinner-mom, and you'll find everything there. You can sign up for the newsletter, and of course, you'll get exclusives and these recipes and more each week. And on social media, I'm primarily on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. In those cases, I'm Dinner Mom, no hyphen, just Dinner Mom.
That's super simple. Thank you so much. This has been lovely. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
I told you you'd love hearing from Marjory. And quiche, right? So perfect for Mother's Day. If you are stumped for something to get your mom for tomorrow and she lives locally, you could make up a whole bunch of these and freeze them and take them over there. I bet she would love that. So thoughtful, making her cooking day easier. And if she's not a gluten-free kind of person, you could even make some homemade pie crust to go with it, or buy some pie crust from the grocery store. That's what I do. I have warm fingers. I cannot make good pastry no matter how hard I try. But yeah, so you can do something like that, or do it for yourself and then make your life a little bit easier for the weeks ahead. I know I was so excited about it in this conversation, and I am doing this week. So, at this time in the show, I often tell you about things that I am testing and photographing and doing videos for the websites. And this is a week where I don't really have anything specific planned. I mean, I do know what we're going to be doing in some weeks ahead, but I like to every now and then give myself a week, which is more just for playing around. I just want to try some things. And so I was talking about that cooking for two project that I'm working on. I told you about that at the top of the show, or I hinted about it anyways. I am going to be doing some testing on this kind of quiche and egg-based things in the freezer for that. I'm also doing some testing about these semi-freezer meals that I have been trying with a few things. I want to do some testing with them. It's kind of where you prep enough for 2 meals and don't cook it yet, prep enough for 2 meals, and then half of it goes into the freezer and the other half is for today. And then I'm also playing around with some pantry lunches and pantry dinners. So things that, it starts with a can of chickpeas, or it starts with a can of salmon, and just uses a few little ingredients to make something delicious but really, really simple that you didn't even have to grocery shop for, because you tend to have the things. So I'm just playing around with some flavors and some ingredients and seeing which directions I want to go to in that area. So more exploratory week, which I know I am excited about. I love when I get to go into the kitchen without a real plan and see where my mood takes me. It's really fun. As to what is going live on the site this week, actually both of them came from similar exploratory sessions from a long time ago. One of them is how to cook diced chicken, or chicken pieces, when you cut chicken breast into bite-sized pieces. And the reason this came about was because I was making a recipe a long time ago that called for you to cut up the chicken first. And I do that sometimes, I don't do it, but for whatever reason this time, as I was doing it, I was thinking to myself about how chicken breast has such a reputation for being dry, and I think it's because the chicken is uneven thickness, so it's thick at one end and thin at the other, and also because when it is thick, it takes a long time for the heat to penetrate and cook the middle of the thickest part, and in that time, the outside has been in contact with the heat for a long time and is dry, so your chicken gets to a safe temperature, but it's still dry on the outside. And as I was making this recipe all these ages ago, I was thinking about how if you cut the chicken into all identical sized pieces, and if they're small enough, then no part of them is really in contact with the heat for too long, and it doesn't dry out as much. And so that was, of course, the theory, and it sounds perfectly logical, but I wanted to go in and just test a whole bunch of different things and see what worked best to get really, really juicy little bite-sized pieces of chicken. And that is how this came about. The other one that's going live this week is air fryer sausage and peppers. And this was because, I have this how to cook sausages in the air fryer recipe that is very popular on Cook the Story, but also on TikTok and Instagram. It just gets searched for and found over and over and over again by people, and they love it. Oh, YouTube as well. And yeah, that method for cooking them is so amazing. It is the only way that I cook sausages anymore. And so I really love doing sausage and pepper hoagies, or we'll do sausage and pepper on pasta, that kind of thing. And I was one day thinking, wait a minute, if I cook the sausages in the air fryer, they're perfect. Can I add the sliced peppers and onions too? And if so, when do you add them so that they end up perfectly cooked and the sausages end up perfectly cooked? So that was experimenting experimenting with the timing, which I did over a series of several weeks for our dinners. So it was like every Wednesday-ish, every second week. What are we having for dinner, Mom? Air fryer, sausage, and peppers. Oh, I hope they're not burnt this time. Oh, I hope they're cooked through this time. You know, it kind of went like that, but we got it just right. And that is going live on Cook the Story this week. As to what I'm telling you about this week, tomorrow I am telling you about a recipe that my mom does not like. It is a special Mother's Day episode about something my mom does not like. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, I am doing that how to cook chicken pieces and the air fryer sausage and peppers. Those are going live this week. And a turkey chili. And, oh, I'm so excited about this. I am doing the smoked chicken breast redo. Oh, the theme of exploration. You know, I've told you about this so much now. I had a way of cooking chicken breasts on the grill, like smoking chicken breasts on a regular grill. And I've been doing it a certain way for a very long time. And I told you about it. And the recipe is up on the Cookful. And then this one day I did it differently and then realized it was even better and did a bunch of testing to sort of compare and contrast and see if it really was better or not and how I could improve it. And so now I am bringing you the results of all of that experimentation. So that is this week as well. Stay tuned for all of it. If you are not already subscribed to this podcast, make sure you are so you don't miss any of it. You can go on your phone to your favorite podcast app and search for Recipe of the Day. You will find me, or go to cookthestory.com/ROTD, and right across the top, you will see places that you can subscribe, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Those places, tap and then click follow or subscribe. And you will get a recipe from me in podcast form every single day. I want to say a big thank you to Marjory from dinnermom.com. That's dinner-mom.com for being such a great guest and sharing her tips with us. And thank you to you for listening. And if you are celebrating, happy Mother's Day. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.